there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. We are going to be creating an off-the-edge shaker acetate portion of our card today. So I am going to start here. I have my 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card base. Then I have a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card front, which is made up of 80-pound cardstock. I am cutting this down so that it measures 4 by 5 1/4 because I really want there to be that nice border in between, and that will definitely emphasize the fact that part of our edge is going to be pure acetate. So here I'm going to start off with stamping a butterfly. Now again, go with any image that you want. Lots of different things could be used here. I just thought this would look cool because it kind of reminds me of, you know, the path that the butterfly is traveling. So for this happens to be a layering stamp. I am not even sure if this is still available. I will do my best, and if I can find it, it will be linked down below in the description box. I am lining up the most solid layer. This bottom layer is pretty much all solid, and I want it to be in that top left-hand corner of my card. It is easiest to use a stamp positioner for this, but I am actually going to be using Pigment inks today, and Pigment inks, these ones in particular, the VersaFine Clair, stamp beautifully. They are very solid, no blotchiness, no waiting for it to dry until it becomes solid. They stamp beautifully, and this makes it a really good choice for these layering stamps. So the very first layer here I am doing in the color Cheerful, and then I'm coming back in with the middle layer, and this is the golden meadow color, and there's a few more gaps in this one. It creates a little more detail on the stamp. If you didn't want to use a layering stamp, then you could always use some die cuts here. I did think that would be really fun too. But I had been playing with this butterfly stamp set on another project and thought that it would work really well for this one, seeing as it was sitting there in front of me. But die cuts, layering up some die cuts, even that would make it a little more 3D, could be fun as well. But the final layer here I'm using is Summertime, and this is just an orangey type layer. Bear in mind that the colors of the inks will change ever so slightly because I'm layering them on top of each other. So of course they'll be a little bit influenced by that. But I have my butterfly here, and now with a pencil, because I just wanted to kind of get a rough idea of where I was going to cut, I am going to make sure that I make this path of the butterfly end up coming off the right hand side of my card, and I don't want to lose that corner down the bottom right hand side. I want to make sure that I don't go too close to that, just because I didn't want to do a corner with my acetate. So I am just using a pair of the Tim Holtz scissors. I love these big long shears. You guys have seen them in almost every video. They're definitely a great investment that I made. And the nice long blades just kind of help me get that big, long, smooth cut. I don't want it to be choppy. I want it to kind of look like one big, long cut there. So then I'm using a sentiment, and again, you guys know that when I get a stamp set, I'm going to use it a lot. There are heaps of different sentiments that would fit here. This is the Sentimental Flowers from Simon Hurley, and it's a 6x8 stamp set, so it's a large stamp set. And these sentiments are kind of big. They're definitely on the larger side, and so that can be really useful in some of my projects. So I did need a thank you one and decided that I would go ahead and use that one for today. You can see I'm kind of rubbing it in my hands because I haven't used this stamp before, so I'm just getting it ready for stamping. Then I decided to do it in my platform because I am actually going to stamp it in some of the Cheerful color, which is the brightest, lightest yellow color that I used for the butterfly. Then watch here, and I'm going to just ever so slightly shift my panel down and to the right, like just a mil or two. Then I'm going to stamp in the Summertime color, which is the orange one, and I will stamp over top. And then this way I get a really nice little shadow. Now this can be really fun to do with heat embossing and things. I've showed that in other videos how I do that, but I'll just show you up close. You can see that it has a kind of nice little shadow of that yellow ink, but the main sentiment is in the orange. Now, speaking of the orange, I am going to kind of keep this card all nice and cohesive, and I think it's really important when you kind of cut cardstock to define the edges as well. Otherwise it looks a little bit unfinished to me. So I am going to add a little bit of the same Summertime ink, the orange one, using a finger dauber. Now I am using a scrap piece of paper in there because I didn't want to get it anywhere other than directly on those cut edges. So when I get right into the center of that little bit there, I use that scrap paper just to protect the other side. And then I am going to go right around the edges as well, because this will be sitting on a white card base, so it will definitely help it stand out just a little bit. These little finishing touches are not necessary, you don't have to do them, but I do find that they do make a lot of difference. And you can see even when I put this down on the white piece of scrap paper I have there, that you can definitely pick out those orange edges and that they do make a difference. So I do think it is worthwhile if you have the time to spare. And then after this, we are going to be creating a shaker portion that kind of comes out from behind that little gap that we've made. So I'm going to put on a scoring blade onto my trimmer here. Make sure I take off the cutting blade. I have a piece of acetate. These come, I think, 5 by 6 inches. And I will link in everything down below, as I said. But I am going to score right up the center of this acetate, and that just helps me fold it. It's not exactly necessary to score it. You can definitely just bend the acetate, but it just helps me get a nice, tight, neat score because it is going to be the edge of my card. So you can see there it's got the nice edge to it. Then I am going to add some tape, some double-sided tape. I want this to be really strong. And I'm going to add it around the 3 edges so I can eventually close this up and make this a pouch of sequins. So I've put the double-sided tape around. I will pull off all of the release papers and you can see that it's just going to create a really nice little pocket. I am actually only going to take the 2 side ones off because I want to put in my filler first. So you can see there that it's just a piece of panel folded in half, and then I am going to tape up the sides. And now as for what you would like to put in this little shaker pouch, the world is your oyster. You can use whatever you have on hand. If you want it to be nice and flat, I would suggest something like glitter or along those lines. If you want to use paper punch outs, then that would be fun too. You can use flat sequins, you could use little micro beads, whatever you have on hand would work well. I have these little flowers here, which I felt like they went well with the theme of the butterfly and a bright and cheerful kind of card. So I have my little pouch here, my little acetate pouch, and I was just going to take pinches of the sequins, but honestly it's much easier just to pour them in. And then when I was pouring these in from the side, it looked really pretty when they were all stacked up, but I knew that I was going to have to shake this up, so I need to let go of that control. I'm going to pull out the extra little piece of release paper and make sure that this is nice and sealed up. I do not want anything coming out of this when the recipient shakes the card. So I'm going to shake up all those different sequins and mix them around, and they shake really nicely because they are pretty flat. So there is not a lot of bulk to this little shaker at all. But as I said, you can decide how much bulk you have by what you decide to put inside of your little pouch. Now to attach my little acetate pouch, I again am just using some strong double-sided tape. I find that when I'm working with acetate, I find double-sided tape much easier to use and kind of adheres down much nicer. So that's what I'm going with. Pulling off the release paper, and then I want that nice clean edge, the one that we folded, is going to go on the outside here. So make sure all the taped sides are facing inwards, and I want to line it up exactly along the edge of the card so it kind of continues along the edge of the card. Then to keep everything really nice and flat and even, I did decide to add a thin foam tape. Now, as I said, these flowers don't hold a whole lot of bulk to them, but I did make sure that there were plenty in the shaker pouch. So to keep everything even, I'm going to pop on some double-sided tape. Then I'm adding on liquid glue to the back of the double-sided tape. Even though it has adhesive on it, and this seems counterintuitive, I'm doing this so that I have the wiggle room to get it exactly where I want it to go. I don't want to adhere this on wobbly at this point in my card making. So I'm also going to add a little bit of double-sided tape to the back of that shaker pouch, making sure I get nowhere that is going to be in the window, just in case the sequins move, but I do want it to be adhered down nicely to my card, and then this way I can move it around until I get exactly the right position, and then press down so that it is solid on my 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card base. Now for the finishing touches, there are just a couple of things that I'm going to do. I have some silver Nouveau drops. You could use some sequins, some gems, some enamel dots, or any other kind of liquid drops that you have. I'm adding a few drops here, there, and all around the place, and not too many because I really want that butterfly to be the center focus, but just a few little drops. And then finally I'm going to add some of the stardust pen to the wings of the butterfly, and that really just kind of adds a gorgeous layer of sparkle. So I'm just going around the veins of the butterfly's wings, and then in a minute I will hold it up so that you can see how gorgeous this shimmer and sparkle is of this really easy little pen. It kind of doesn't change the color of the ink at all, but when you move it in the light, it is really, really gorgeous. So it's worthwhile, all those smaller details. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you have enjoyed creating this card. I certainly had heaps of fun. If you make something similar or you're inspired by this, please tag me on social media or show me on my Facebook page. I would love to see it there. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.